The observation deck of the Earthbound Hope trembled as another volley of plasma fire struck the shields. Melissa gripped the railing, her knuckles white against the cold metal, watching through the reinforced viewport as the Kreshtar armada closed in like predators circling wounded prey, shields at 23%. The automated voice announced with mechanical indifference. Liam stood at the emergency manual override station, his fingers hovering over the interface. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the frigid air cycling through life support. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to find an escape pod, to choose survival over sacrifice. But there was nowhere left to run. The evacuation transports cleared the debris field, Melissa said, her voice steady despite everything. They're safe, 800 souls. 800 colonists who had trusted them, who had boarded this colony ship with dreams of new worlds and fresh starts. Now those people were fleeing toward the inner planets while the Earthbound Hope served as their shield. The Kreshtar had been clear in their ultimatum. Humanity would not expand beyond Mars. Every ship that attempted to breach the invisible boundary they'd drawn across the solar system would be destroyed. For 3 years humanity had complied, had cowered, had accepted their cage, until the Earthbound Hope had launched in defiance. "They're charging weapons again," Liam said, his voice cracking. The holographic display showed 6 dreadnoughts moving into firing position. "Melissa, we need to execute Protocol Titan," she interrupted. He froze. Protocol Titan wasn't just a weapon, it was a statement. A line in the sand written in fire and fury that would either save humanity or condemn them entirely. "Right here?" Liam whispered, his hands beginning to tremble. "Right now?" Melissa turned to face him fully. In the blue emergency lighting, her features seemed carved from stone, but her eyes held centuries of human defiance. Every explorer who'd crossed an ocean, every scientist who'd reached for the stars, every person who'd ever looked at the impossible and said, "Watch me." "Right here. Right now," she said. "They think we're weak because we value life. They think we're cowards because we retreated. Show them what humans do when you back us into a corner." Liam's hand shook violently as he entered his authorization code. Protocol Titan had been developed in secret after first contact with the Kreshtar. It was humanity's nuclear option, quite literally. Every colony ship carried it, a fusion core modified to create a controlled tear in space-time itself. The mathematics were elegant. The consequences were absolute. "The evacuation ships," he said, hesitating, "are 17 million kilometers away and accelerating," Melissa confirmed. "They'll feel the shockwave, but they'll survive." "The Kreshtar fleet," she didn't need to finish. The display showed the aliens closing to optimal firing range. In 30 seconds, the Earthbound Hope would be nothing but debris. In 30 seconds, 800 lives would have been saved, but humanity would remain in its cage, forever afraid. Liam thought of his sister on Europa Station, his nephew who'd never seen Earth's blue sky, all the children growing up in domes and habitats, learning to keep their heads down, learning that the stars were for other species. "We're not prey," he said, his voice gaining strength. His hand steadied over the controls. "We never were." He input the final sequence. "Authorization confirmed," the computer announced. "Protocol Titan initiated. Core destabilization in 60 seconds. Melissa moved to stand beside him, their shoulders touching. Through the viewport, the Kreshtar dreadnoughts loomed like mountains of alien steel and hatred. "They're hailing us," Liam said, checking the communications panel, "demanding our surrender." "Tell them," Melissa said quietly, "that humans don't surrender. We adapt, we endure, and when you push us too far—" She nodded toward the pulsing core readout. "We push back." Liam opened the channel. "Kreshtar fleet, this is the Earthbound Hope. You wanted to see what happens when humanity has nothing left to lose. Consider this your answer." The alien response was a stream of threats and warnings, but neither human was listening anymore. The core's destabilization was reaching the critical threshold. Space itself was beginning to scream. 40 seconds, the computer said. "Do you think they'll learn?" Liam asked. "After this, do you think they'll let humanity expand?" Melissa watched the dreadnoughts, saw them finally beginning to turn to flee. Realizing too late what was about to happen, "I think they'll learn that caging us comes with a price. That every boundary they draw will eventually cross. That's what humans do." 20 seconds. The ship's superstructure groaned. Reality itself was starting to fracture around the core, space folding and unfolding like origami made of starlight. Liam reached out and took Melissa's hand. His trembling had stopped. They stood together, two humans at the edge of oblivion, refusing to go quietly. You know, he said with a slight smile. I always wanted to see something no one had ever seen before. 10 seconds. The Kreshtar ships were scattering now, burning their engines at maximum, desperate to escape the expanding sphere of distorted space-time. They wouldn't make it. The calculations had been precise. For Earth, Melissa said. For humanity, Liam replied. 3, 2, 1. The Earthbound Hope became a second sun, a bloom of fusion fire and twisted physics that expanded at relativistic speed. The Kreshtar dreadnoughts vanished in an instant, their shields and armor meaningless against a weapon that rewrote the rules of existence itself. 17 million kilometers away, the evacuation transports detected the energy surge. Alarms blared. Children cried. Adults held each other, knowing what it meant, knowing the price that had been paid, but they were alive. They were free. And every sensor in the convoy had recorded what happened. Within hours, the data would reach Mars. Within days, Earth. Within weeks, every human habitat in the solar system would know that two people named Melissa and Liam had looked at an alien armada and said no more. The Kreshtar would come again. Humanity knew that. But they would come knowing that humans could bite back, that compassion wasn't weakness, that a species willing to die for its freedom would eventually learn to kill for it too. In the void where the Earthbound Hope had made its stand, space slowly healed itself. The fusion fire faded. The distortions normalized. Nothing remained but cooling debris and a message written in physics itself. Humanity would not be caged. Not today. Not ever. Right here, right now, the war for human expansion had begun. And two trembling hands had fired the opening shot that echoed across the stars.